It's no secret that I'm a fan of Hot Wheels, especially their media presence in the 2000s. They are something I very much still enjoy to this day. They all have a cult following, and for a good reason. Despite being 20-year-old toy commercials, they still hold up extremely well. Although they may not have aged the best visually, they still tell a fantastic narrative. These movies are far from perfect though, and I'm not just talking about animation errors because, oh boy, that's sure a thing. However, there's one movie out of the 4 that I've personally found myself distancing from over the years, and that would be Ignition. I thought it would be interesting to translate my thoughts on why Ignition is my least favorite of the movies into a video essay format. Before I open up, I want to clarify. Do I hate this movie?
No.
I actually still do find Ignition enjoyable from time to time. I just think compared to the other 3 movies, this one is quite literally the weakest. But why, you may be asking? Personally, on my latest rewatch, I've devoted this reason of it being the weakest down to 3 major flaws I see in this movie compared to the others. Those being 1. Character assassination, 2. Poor pacing, and 3. Coming full circle with the first point, the characters themselves. I'm going to go fully in depth with each of these points, but before we do, I want to open this video on a positive note. I thought it would be really stupid if I made this whole video just me complaining about the movie and just all the bad things it is, because I really think that'd be a really boring video. On my latest rewatch, I absolutely do feel there are some very good things this movie does. Hell, even better than some of the other movies in the series, in which we will translate to talking about these now. So the first thing I noticed on this rewatch is how good the score is, and just the general audio mixing. They do a terrific job maxing the music with the action on screen. 2 major instances I noticed in the rewatch were during the Storm Realm's vertical loop and the Swamp Realm's climax with the Swamp Beast. They even play with some dynamic music, especially in that final scene of the Swamp Realm, with the music escalating 1 level higher with every action happening on the screen. Take a listen.
I can see the end!
In this movie are incredible. When you get scenes like this mixed in with dynamic music,
Use the Nitrox!
the opening too is absolutely fantastic in my opinion. It's a beautiful example of showing and not telling. Imagine watching the lighthearted, albeit comedic ending of World Race, just to be greeted with this. Yeah, it's a total 180 in tone, and I feel like it works to this film's favor, leaving us with more questions than answers, like, who are these robots? Is it Clip from the last movie? What happened to Tesla? Is he dead? Who the hell is the Snake? I also love how they do subtly confirm that this is Hot Wheels City if it wasn't obvious in this closing shot of the scene, showing Tesla reach for the Highway 35 sign. Okay, but seriously though, I want to know what the hell the deal with this snake is. This segues into my next point of what I did enjoy in this movie on a rewatch.
Galorum, I just come to tell you that I have all AcceleRacers. Oh shit.
I love how they decided to handle her in this movie. Throughout the film, we see her hidden away in the shadow, and our only glimpses of seeing her actual appearance are through the green silhouettes on her face, which match the rest of her new army. And they keep it this way right up until the final scene of the film. Remember, the last time we saw Galorm, she looked like this. Yeah, she looked like a Starbucks customer that got pissed off she didn't get an extra shot of espresso in her latte. But now, oh my goodness, okay, someone had plastic surgery. The way they decided to fully reveal her in the closing shot of the film, and then just have that be the final thing we see before the credits, it's a really fantastic payoff to the entire movie, and makes her feel like an actual threat. And now, before we get into the negatives, I just want to do a quick little speed run here of fun things I noticed for the first time on this rewatch. Number 1. We see Torque's window roll up on Hollowback after he tells Wild off before the race. This is just pretty funny to me, I don't know why. Taro actually gets hit by the slam ram itself, and not the actual ram part of the slam ram like Marky and Kadim almost did. Something I really liked about Nolo in this is that he clearly feels like he's inflicting more of a Spanish accent in this compared to the other 3 movies.
Being leader sounds like a heavy load, man.
Remember who's the Teku leader, huh? Nothing's more important than the Teku!
But I feel like it's very much apparent and way more open and noticeable in this movie, and I think it's for the better. I love Tesla's expression after Kurt questions him about who is he afraid of. You can see his eyebrows lower and he makes more of a disgusted expression. And I think that's really cool given the relationship between these characters we saw in World Race. And then, spoiler alert, I had to get footage from the Ultimate Race for this video later on. And when I was rewatching Ultimate Race to get the clips, I noticed this. When Vert does a U-turn, look what happens. Yeah, when Reverb clips through the car lift, they added a little sound effect to add on to it. I think it's way funnier this way, that they don't even acknowledge it, and it's a blink and you miss it moment. It kind of reminds me how in re-releases of A New Hope, that they added a sound effect to the stormtrooper bonking his head on the door. And with all of these positives taken out of the way, I think now it's time to transition in some of my negatives with this movie. What I noticed on this latest rewatch, in this movie specifically, compared to the other 3, is the changing perspectives at a rapid pace, which to me I feel makes it harder to follow a consecutive narrative, as there's no real focus from start to finish. However, the defense I'll give to the realms in Ignition is that you have more than 6 core characters entering a realm at once, and given that the movie is only left with around 40 minutes to cover both realms, I don't want to reasonably critique that or take points off. However, I think this problem severely rears its ugly head the most in the Swamp Realm, due to having to juggle 8 characters over 13 minutes, which leaves some characters like Wild or Scirocco out to dry, so to say, as we barely get any focus on them and you kind of forget they exist. If anything, I think the problem at the end of the day boils down to how they spend their 60 minutes, which translates into what I ultimately think causes this film's pacing problems. The opening 20 minutes of the movie. I compared this to the first 20 minutes of World Race's opening, and here are my findings. Given how World Race is pretty much split across 5 22-minute episodes, the pacing feels a lot snappier as they had to fit into that 22-minute. And within this 22 minutes, we see the whole first leg of the World Race completed, the characters are introduced and fleshed out, the inciting incident is present, and we get our protagonist's call to adventure, all within the first 22 minutes of the movie. Meanwhile, Ignition takes its sweet time. It does flourish out a larger scale story than World Race, which does more showing than telling with its world, and contributes to a lot of the world building and previously established lore in World Race. A friend of mine once said World Race opening act felt more tutorial-esque, and with scenes like this,
and each car has special equipment to handle a different type of terrain. Sweet!
Yeah, honestly, I can agree to that to an extent. Ignition, however, does do the same thing, but I feel it's way more naturally interwoven into the story. Notably, the realms being open for an hour, explaining how the humans enter the realm, recapping the events of World Race, etc. These are all very much tutorial-esque, in my opinion, but I feel like compared to World Race, they do a better job at naturally integrating it into the story. Overall, I feel the main reason the pacing is the weakest in Ignition, at the end of the day, boils down to those first 20 minutes being somewhat slow, and although they do a good job in world building, it really causes the rest of the movie to suffer, as it has to rush through the rest of the action, which leaves the swamp and storm realm feeling somewhat half-baked and unfocused. Characters are the blood life of a series. If we don't have enjoyable characters, then what's the point? Viewing this movie as a sequel to Highway 35, seeing the arcs that the returning characters went through in those movies and comparing them to how they act in Ignition, I feel two of them definitely changed for the better, having their conflicts in World Race continue in a new form here. Whilst the other two, yeah, I'm not sure if this is an unpopular opinion or not, but I absolutely despise Vert and Taro in this movie. The former more than the latter, but oh, believe me, we'll get to you. Vert's arc in World Race at a glance has to do with him, a young impressionable 16-year-old, learning that the world doesn't revolve around him. And as his father says,
"You can't always do what you want. You have to think about other people."
It's not an arc that reinvents the wheel. Get it? Wheel. Wheeler. Wordplay's fun. It's been done to death multiple times by now. But hey, for a kids movie about toy cars, it works fine and is a good enough message. It sucks to see this immediately thrown away at Ignition though, not even 10 minutes into the movie when he's immediately complaining about and shitting on Nolo simply because of a lighthearted joke, and then follows up complaining about his dead brother? Yeah, that seems like a bit of a, departure from the matured Vert we knew at the end of World Race. Something I did notice post-rewatch about Verk, what the hell? Something I did notice post-rewatch is how they seem to flip-flop between this matured Vert from World Race and this new sort of jerk persona he develops. And then this gets worse in Speed of Silence, in my opinion, but this is mostly focused on Ignition, so I won't really mention it, but God, it's just really frustrating to see how he fell from grace in this movie compared to World Race.